Today, we are taking you along on a recent, absolutely epic adventure that Seb and I took to Slovenia. Now, if you follow the show, you know we spend a lot of our year running and scouting group tours for Well Vegan Travel, but this trip was a little bit different. This was purely a for fun trip for us, and it was actually something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. Seb was the one who originally pitched the idea of Slovenia. And because I'm pretty much up for anything, well, certainly in the hiking area, I immediately said, let's do it. We also had a hidden motive. We wanted a trip that would give us some serious hiking training as we get ready for our upcoming Kilimanjaro trek, which we are doing with Well Vegan Travel. And we are taking a group of, I think, about 10 or 12 travelers on that trip. So, spoiler alert, Slovenia completely blew us away. It is hands down one of the most spectacularly beautiful places we have ever been. And what shocked us the most was how quiet and peaceful it was, especially considering we were traveling right during the peak of the summer season. Over the next 3 episodes, we're going to give you the real expectation versus reality breakdown of trekking through the Julian Alps. We'll hike into some of the incredible highs, like eating high-end plant-based steak in Ljubljana and finding a flawless vegan version of a legendary local cream cake. But we're also going to share the real grit and some hilarious behind-the-scenes moments, including a massive heat wave, a lunch stop that turned into a swarming cow pasture fly trap, and the moment a passenger on a train calmly stripped down to his underwear right behind me on an Austrian train in first class. So before we lace up our boots, I want to talk a little bit about the logistical setup, because hiking in Europe can be vastly different to what we are used to back home in North America. So we were not backcountry camping or carrying heavy packs. Instead, we hired a local company to create a best of itinerary for the famous Juliana Trail based on the amount of days that we had available. They booked all of our accommodations and arranged a seamless door-to-door luggage transfer service. Every morning, we just handed over our big bags by leaving them at reception before 9 a.m., hopped on the trail with our lightweight day packs and walked to the next mountain village where our luggage was waiting for us in the hotel. Honestly, we absolutely could have booked it all ourselves, but we just didn't have the time to coordinate it all and doing all of the research, and it was surprisingly inexpensive for the massive amount of time and stress it saved us. So pack your digital bags, because our journey kicks off not in the mountains, but on a historic coastal railway leaving Venice and heading towards the capital of coffee. So our grand transit day officially kicked off around 10 a.m. in Venice, Italy. Now, to give you a bit of context as to why we were starting our trip there, Seb and I had actually just finished running our 3rd back-to-back group tour in Italy, which wrapped up beautifully right in Venice. So while our guests were heading home, we were gearing up to switch into personal vacation mode and make our way towards the massive mountain trails of Slovenia. We were preparing to hike the best of route through the spectacular Juliana Trail through the Julian Alps. So this was our final staging day. But before we could even see a mountain, we had to deal with the weather. So at this time, Western Europe was firmly gripped by an absolute monster of an early summer heat wave. Having endured a week of scorching temperatures during our tours, just getting our heavy gear moving in the morning humidity of Venice was a total workout. We hopped into a classic Venetian water taxi to cruise over to the Venezia Santa Lucia railway station, where we caught a direct regional train bound for Trieste. So the rail journey from Venice to Trieste is gorgeous. The tracks slice eastward across the flat plains of the Friuli, Venezia Giulia region before hitting the rugged Carso coastline. So if you ever do this ride, make sure you get a window seat and that you are on the right side of the train, because the final 20 minutes are really spectacular. The tracks hug the high, sheer limestone cliffs of the Gulf of Trieste, giving you these uninterrupted elevated views looking right down into the glittering deep blue Adriatic Sea with tiny white-sailed yachts bobbing along the shore. It was pretty nice. Upon pulling into the historic Trieste Centrale station, the heat of the city hit us instantly. We walked a short distance to check into our base camp, the NH Trieste, our hotel, which was pretty comfortable and perfectly situated. Because it was right at the peak of midday, our immediate desperate priority was scouting some substantial fuel. And this is where Trieste threw us for a bit of a loop. Despite the city's massive culinary prestige, we discovered that there is not a single 100% vegan restaurant in the entire city. However, there were some vegan-friendly ones. We tracked down a hip little brunch cafe and bar that was happy to accommodate us. Well, they had vegan items on the menu. We had a fantastic house burger that they customized to be vegan, and Seb went for a delicious loaded piadina wrap stuffed with high-quality vegan meat substitute of some sort. It was good. We spent the rest of our afternoon focused on strict logistics and hiking reconnaissance. Because we were utilising that door-to-door luggage transfer service, we needed to hunt down secure tags and waterproof plastic folders to clearly display our route reservations for the local drivers. We also conducted a thorough defensive grocery raid across the city centre, knowing this would be our absolute last chance to buy high-quality plant-based supplies before disappearing into the rural Slovenian valleys. We hit up a local Eurospar for essentials and also struck absolute gold at Naturacy, which is Italy's premier organic health food store chain. We heavily stocked our packs with vegan trail snacks and energy food. Now, a little fun fact about Trieste, walking through it feels entirely distinct from the rest of Italy. And this is because for over 500 years, Trieste was the crown jewel and primary seaport of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This is why the architecture borrows heavily from the grand, stately, neoclassical styles of Vienna rather than the rustic red bricks of typical Italian towns. Despite those deep Austrian ties, the city maintained its Italian language and identity and was officially annexed to Italy in 1918 after World War I. It's also the historic coffee capital of Europe. It's the birthplace of global giants like Illy Coffee, and its historic marble-topped coffee houses were creative sanctuaries for icons like James Joyce. Today, Triestenes drink twice as much coffee as the national Italian average, and they use an entirely unique dialect to order their espresso. If you go, you have to ask for a capo in B to get a mini cappuccino served in a little glass, of course, with oat milk. By 6 p.m., the oppressive midday sun began to dip and the city finally breathes a sigh of relief. Because our lunchtime burger feast had left us completely bursting, we skipped a formal dinner and spent the evening doing a classic tourist loop of the city's coastal sites. We walked along the Grand Canal, this stunning narrow waterway excavated in the 1750s so commercial sailing ships could glide straight into the city centre to unlock cargo. Today it's flanked by grand palaces, outdoor cafe tables and a bronze statue of James Joyce perpetually walking across the Red Bridge. From there, we strolled into the Piazza Unità d'Italia, which is widely celebrated as the largest sea-facing plaza in all of Europe. It is enclosed on three sides by towering, beautifully illuminated palaces and wide open to the blue Gulf of Trieste on the fourth. It acts as the majestic, wind-swept heart of the city. So directly opposite the square, we walked out along the Molo Audace, an historic stone pier that jets 250 metres straight out into the deep sea. It's a premier cruise ship destination, and the cruise ships can moor there because it's so deep. And today it was perfectly warm and peaceful, offering us a sweeping view of the city front as the evening lights began to glow. Exhausted from a brilliant packed travel day, we finally retraced our steps to the hotel to double check our hiking packs and catch an early night before our official border crossing into Slovenia the following day. Day 2, since our train out of Trieste wasn't leaving until after lunch, we had the whole morning to relax and grab a bite to eat. Even though pizza and pasta were practically everywhere, we had just spent several weeks eating our way through Italy on our tours, so we didn't really feel like Italian food. Instead, we just went for another vegan-friendly burger. We then returned to NH Trieste because we had collected the bags that we had left at the front desk after checking out earlier, and made our way to the station in the very hot sun. The first leg of our rail journey took us from Trieste up into Villach, that's the Austrian state rail company, via the OBB Eurocity Transalpina route. If you are planning this trip, booking their top-tier business class carriage is really nice. It offers massive, ultra-comfortable reclining seats, individual reading lights, and quiet compartments that make train travel feel very nice. As the train climbs away from the Adriatic coast and cuts straight through dramatic mountain passes, the scenery is just stunning. It's a landscape of wide, sweeping green valleys flanked by massive jagged limestone peaks on either side. It feels completely isolated and wild, covered in dense, pristine pine forests and broken up by a relentless series of mountain tunnels carved right through the rock. The ride was exceptionally comfortable, although it did include one incredibly bizarre moment. Seb and I were sitting directly opposite each other when a man standing right behind me, I didn't know about this, Seb told me after the fact, a man standing right behind me calmly stripped completely out of his trousers and just hung out in the open carriage in his tidy-whities. We both thought that this was pretty hilarious and definitely a highlight of the transit day. I literally have no idea why he didn't go into the bathroom to do that. There you go. So we rolled into Villach Hauptbahnhof in Austria. The European heatwave was still going strong, so I decided to camp out at a station cafe to guard our heavy bags while Seb went for a quick poke around the immediate area. From Villach, we boarded a regional train for the roughly 1 hour journey south across the border into Slovenia, bound for the Bled Jezero railway station. So this route was really interesting. It takes you through the historic Karawanks Tunnel, a major engineering feat opened in 1906 under the Austro-Hungarian Empire that connects Austria directly with Slovenia. As the regional train emerges on the Slovenian side, it snakes down through the gorgeous Savna Bohinča River Valley. Unlike the main Lake Bled station, which sits far out in the industrial plains, arriving at Bled Jezero places you right on the quiet western elevated slopes overlooking the lake itself, offering an immediate dramatic view of the water through the trees. The Bled Jezero station sits about 5 to 7 minute drive from where we were staying on the main banks of Lake Bled. We were supposed to have a pre-arranged transfer vehicle waiting for us, but after standing around for 20 minutes and calling the contact number that we had with absolutely no answer, we realised that they were a total no-show. Fortunately, a few local taxi drivers were packed at the station. They weren't pushy at all, and from the exact moment that we stepped off the train, they were very helpful. And when we realised that our transfer was not coming, we gladly paid one of the drivers €20 cash to drive us to our hotel. We checked into Hotel Compass, quickly dumped our gear, tossed our perishable grocery stash into the room fridge, put our ice blocks that's going to keep our perishable grocery stash cold into the hotel's freezer, and headed out to see the lake. So the air was quite hazy as the night began to fall, but the lakeside promenade had a beautiful, festive summer party atmosphere going on. Seb was hungry for a full meal, but I was perfectly content sitting by the water, eating a custom DIY salad I had defensively assembled back during our supermarket raid in Trieste. I had purchased a pre-packed garden salad base of radicchio, corn, olives, and some tomatoes. a little sachet of lupini beans that I found at Naturisti, and topped it with some little sachets of olive oil, vinegar, and salt. It really was so delicious, and I was so grateful for that. And I had that many times over the course of my trip. So our first impressions of Slovenia is that everybody was remarkably friendly, warm, and eager to help. And it had us very excited to explore Slovenia more. On day 3, we woke up in Bled, and it was another sun-scorched summer's day. Now, we weren't actually starting the trail itself on this day. We had planned to dedicate the whole day to exploring Bled, but we still had to keep our upcoming trek in mind. So knowing that we would soon plunge into remote sections of the Juliana Trail, our primary mission for the morning was a defensive trailside grocery raid. I know we had done this in Trieste, but we wanted to get some more of the perishable things that we knew we would need. We scoured a few local supermarkets and a health food store. There's a famous health food store called DM Mart, I think it is, in Slovenia. They're also in Croatia as well. And we hit the jackpot with the amount of products that we had, as well as the pricing. So it turns out Slovenia is incredibly cheap, especially compared to back home in Canada. We grabbed bags of vegan Parmesan cheese, perfect for adding life to the basic tomato pastas we assume we'd have on the trail. Spoiler alert, there wasn't that much actually. Vegan deli meats, sliced Vio Life's cheese, which was only $2, pickles, vegan mayo, mustard, and crisp lettuce. We raced back to Hotel Compass, put our cold goods in our room's mini fridge, and set out to conquer the lake. We decided to tackle the scenic loop around Lake Bled in a clockwise direction. Because it was Saturday, the shores were pulsing with a lively festive weekend energy, but it never felt completely suffocating or overcrowded. Now, bear in mind, we've been spending a lot of time in crowded places recently. We had just been in Venice, we had been in Japan, and compared to that, this was not busy at all. The sheer heat of the midday sun was radiating off the water. It was a lot, but the views of the medieval cliff-top castle and the pilgrimage churches sitting isolated on Bled Island made the hot walk very cinematic. Hot and hungry after our walk, we made a beeline for a local vegan restaurant, the only vegan restaurant that is there in Bled, called Public Vegan Kitchen. It's situated right near the lake and highly rated for its fresh, innovative, comfort-focused plant-based menu. We feasted on their satisfying chunky potato wedges alongside crisp, vibrant salads topped with golden chickpea flour fritters and some really fun sauces. It was really good. But the main reason we went there was for a major milestone, and this had been recommended to us by our travellers, Doug and Jim, that they told us that we must go to this restaurant and we must try the vegan Bled cream cake, or the Bleska Krimshnina. You cannot visit Bled without encountering this legendary dessert. And if you're vegan, you can. It has a protected historical destination status dating back to 1953. Now, it's usually made with heavy layers of egg custard and cow's dairy cream. However, like I said, Public Vegan Kitchen flawlessly crafts a plant-based masterpiece, a crisp, flaky pastry base, followed by a thick, perfectly set velvety vanilla custard layer, topped with a luscious cloud of vegan whipped cream, and finished with a dust of powdered sugar over a flaky pastry top. It was pretty good. In fact, Seb absolutely loved it. I also liked it. After lunch, we walked to the Bled bus station to catch a shuttle to the legendary Vintgar Gorge. We were desperately praying that the deep shaded limestone canyon walls would provide a frosty relief from the heat wave, but the air inside remained intensely warm and humid. After switching to a secondary electric shuttle at the site, we had to wait about 30 minutes for our entry slot. We spent the time cooling off and dangling our feet directly into the icy mountain river water, which was awesome. The Vintgar Gorge Trail itself is a 1.6 kilometre wooden boardwalk pinned directly into the vertical canyon walls, surrounded by roaring turquoise rapids, emerald pools, and the 13-metre high Shum waterfall. Safety note for anyone going, you are required to wear hard hats, probably not for rockfalls, we thought, but to protect your head against the low, sharp, overhanging limestone arches across the narrow path. So reaching the end of our gorge walk, we did face a bit of a dilemma. The official return paths involved a grueling, unshaded 1.5-hour hike back over the hills to the bus terminal. Refusing to melt in the heat, we sniffed out a brilliant alternative. An 8-minute walk up a set of stone steps brought us to a designated private shuttle point in the nearby village of Podhum, operated by Natur Bars and the Marmot office. So we had an hour to kill before the next private shuttle departure. So we grabbed a shady table. I treated myself to a super refreshing Radler beer with grapefruit and a vegan chocolate magnum ice cream bar, while Seb cooled down with a fresh lemonade. So the shuttle cost us €7 each, and it whisked us effortlessly back to the main Bled bus station, and we strolled back to the hotel through Bled's lively evening atmosphere and discovered that there was actually a Mercator supermarket tucked right near our hotel that we hadn't noticed before. While slightly smaller than our morning stop, it was perfect for another defensive dinner setup. I made a glorious DIY salad for the second night in a row, a massive base of mashed lettuce topped with juicy cherry tomatoes, a drained jar of hearty chickpeas, and my little sachets of olive oil, vinegar and salt. And I followed it up with a creamy Alpro vegan protein pudding I had picked up earlier in the day. Before passing out for a long, deeply satisfying night of sleep, we spent a hyper-productive 30 minutes completely overhauling and compartmentalizing our duffel bags. Because we've been bouncing relentlessly between distinct trips, our Tuscany tours, the Northern Italy tour, and our Provence scouting mission, our bags were a chaotic explosion of clothes and everything was all mixed up. We managed to condense every single item of clothing that we wouldn't need until the end of our hike into one bag and put the stuff that we wouldn't need into the other. We sealed everything, and it meant that we would just be having to explode one duffel bag every day when we arrived at the hotel. So we were fully organized and rested and ready for day one on the trail the next day. So with our daily gear perfectly streamlined, our hotel room clear of clutter, and our bags stuffed with €2 Vio Life cheese, we finally went to sleep completely organized, rested and ready for day one on the actual trail tomorrow. So actually that wraps up part one of our Slovenian adventure. We hope you enjoyed traveling with us from the grand coffee-fueled streets of Trieste to the stunning picture-perfect shores of Lake Bled. Make sure to join us for part two, because things are about to get real, rugged and physically demanding. We are officially stepping out onto the Juliana Trail, and let's just say reality definitely hits back. We'll be sharing the story of our scenic lunchtime meadow that turned into a cow pasture flytrap, and a grueling 38,000 step day in a brutal heat wave. And trust us, you do not want to miss the next leg of the hike. Until next time, keep exploring, keep eating well, and we'll see you in part two.